let's just take a couple of minutes and talk about 1099s and their requirements. So the IRS has the 1099 instructions for both the NEC and the miscellaneous. It also has instructions on a 1099K. And I very, very strongly encourage everybody to read the instructions for all three forms. And you might ask, why do I need to read the instructions for the 1099K if that's not something that we send out? And the answer is because it gets sent out and you need to know what you need to exclude from your 1099 miscellaneous and 1099 NEC so that it doesn't get duplicated on a 1099K. And next year, it's way more important to know the difference than it ever has been before, because the threshold for the 1099K is going from 25,000 or 200 transactions this year to no minimum transactions and $600 in 2022. So while it didn't affect a lot of people if they did the whole when in doubt, send it out, which I don't advise doing that either. When in doubt, ask questions and find the right answer and then send it out if it's necessary, is how I do that, because there shouldn't be an if ever in doubt when you're doing the 1099s. Yeah, there's some things that you might question, but the answers are always there. So with the 1099 NEC, super simply put, if you pay somebody $600 or more and you do it with a cash or cash equivalent, which is cash, a check, ACH, PayPal friends and family, Venmo, Cash App, or anything that is not a business account or run, or a business account like PayPal or Venmo have business accounts that actually run through a merchant processor, but the other ones don't. So those need to be included in your 1099 list. If it gets run through a merchant processor, you need to exclude it from yours because it will be included in the 1099K. And landlords' rent gets paid on a 1099 miscellaneous. Attorneys is another one that a lot of people have questions on. The attorneys, if they are holding funds from a claim, a settlement that you've received, they get a 1099 miscellaneous. There's a separate line for attorney fees. If they are an attorney that you pay legal fees to, that goes on the 1099 NEC because that's non-employee compensation. There's a lot more. I definitely invite everybody to ask questions on this video and let me know what your questions are. In later this week or early next week, I'm going to start breaking down the instructions and reading the instructions live on the YouTube channel. And I want to break it down into little chunks so that it's easier to understand. And yes, I'm going to read the instructions, but also I am going to give real life examples and hopefully make them easier to understand. So let's see, what other things have I seen with 1099s? Oh, you don't send in order to know who to send a 1099 to in the first place, you need to collect a W-9 from any vendor that you purchase services from. If In construction, you hire a roofer to roof the building, and they also provide you with the materials. You 1099 them for the full amount possibly. If you go to the building supply store and you buy the roofing material from the supply store and you hire somebody else to install it, you do not send the material supplier a 1099. It's only for services. But in order to know who to send a 1099 to, you need to collect a W-9. And the W-9 is going to tell you what information you put on the 1099. It's going to tell you the business owner's name, their company name, how they're registered, if they're a sole proprietor, an S Corp, an LLC, or a corporation. And if they are either an S Corp or a corporation, they don't get a 1099. And yeah, some people will still send them to the corporations, and some corporations get really hot about getting a 1099, but they have to claim the income anyway. And it's always best to send 1099s only to the people who you should be sending them to. But, and if you accidentally send one to a corporation, but you find out after you've sent the 1099 to them, because they didn't update their W-9 and they were an LLC last year, but they became an S Corp or a corporation this year, you didn't know. So you sent it to them as the LLC. The best practices would be to void that 1099. And you can do that if you use the software like Track 1099 or Tax 1099. You can go in and either hit void or file a correction and change the dollar amount to 0. And the reason that we want to do that is because if we say that their LLC or if they change their tax ID, the IRS is going to be looking for that tax ID number to fill out a tax return. And if they don't, then they can get penalties. And we want to avoid all of that. So I will correct it even if I wasn't made aware of the change in the tax status. And a real life example of that is in 2020, I made the election for my business to be taxed as an S Corp, but I sent out a whole bunch of W-9s to people, and there was a few people that I forgot to send it to. And the whole process, if you followed me at all, you'll know that the whole process did not go smoothly. And the IRS ended up creating 2 new EINs for my business. And I was able to close one of those EINs, but I had to keep the other one. And so not only did I make an S Corp election on my LLC, I got a new tax ID. And I had to let everybody know that sent me a 1099 last year. If they sent it to me with my old tax ID for the LLC, I had to have them go back and correct that and not send me a 1099 because I didn't need one because I was a corporation. But if they insisted that they had to send me one, they had to send it with my new tax ID. There was a few places that were just really insistent that they weren't going to change it because they weren't informed of it early enough in the year to make the change. So what I have to do is I have to file a Schedule C, claiming that income, expensing that income, putting in, or removing so that I claim that income, and then I say that the income really belongs to my corporation and it's going to be on my 1120S. So that's what I had to do this in for 2020. And I'm hoping that that is not going to be an issue for 2021. But it's December yet, so I haven't gotten any 1099s. So we'll see what happens in January. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to post them on the video. And thank you for joining me today. Bye.